Give us your ways, oh master.
I got the email and I was like, oh my God, like I'm so excited for this. I need to chill the F out.
Yeah, right. How to be calm. Yes.
Yeah. So go ahead and just share with us and our listeners who you are and what you do. What is the Calm Mama School? Just tell us all about that.
Yeah, great. Well, thank you for having me, Brittany and Lisa. I'm happy to be here. So my kids are a little bit older than maybe your audience. They're 15 and 17, but I love your title, the Imperfect Moms podcast or club, right? Imperfect Mom Club.
Yeah.
So great, because it's really a lot of my work is around trying to release some of the pressure and the, trying to do it right. And that is one of the reasons why we get caught in not being calm. Mm-hmm. So sometimes it's like you could be right, or you can do it right, or you can do it calm. Mm-hmm. So I started doing parent work when my kids were younger, and I came to this work because I was not calm. I was like a very reactive mom. I was yelling a lot. I wasn't like hitting my kids, but I wanted to hit them, and that didn't feel good. Like I was like, grabbing and like kind of real physical, but not abusive. But mm-hmm. verbally, I just would lose my mind. Their behavior was out of control to me. I felt super overwhelmed. And I would lie in bed at night just thinking like, okay, tomorrow I'm going to show up better. I'm going to be a better mom. I'm going to be calm. I'm not going to yell. I'm going to, like get out the finger paint or whatever. They were little. And the next day, same thing. I'd just be right back into the spiral. And there was this point when my son was about 4, I was tucking him in. And so he was 4, my younger son was 2. And I said, honey, I love you. It's like this terrible day, probably yelled timeout, all the things. I love you. And he said, I do. I just don't think you like me very much.
Oh,
yeah.
I can't even imagine. Oh. Sorry. I think I would have instantly just keeled over and been dead. I don't know how.
Like crumbled. And it was just to be called out to that degree, because I really was communicating like, you're a mess. I don't like you. You're a disaster. You're a big problem. I mean, I wasn't saying those things, but that was definitely where I was coming from. And right then I was like, I need to find a different way. This is not who I want to be. This is not the relationship I want to have. And so I started to go to parenting workshops. There wasn't podcasts back then. I would have been like a full-on podcast binger, however many years ago, that was 12 years ago. But I just was like trying to find, I read the books, I went to the workshops, I went to Mom's Club. I was like, what do you guys do? Just trying to figure it all out. And that was the beginning of my journey to find my own way in motherhood. And over the course of several years, I realized that who I wanted to be as a mom was to show up with compassion and kindness and love and teach my children those values. And I didn't know how to do that. So I had to figure all that out, like how to actually be compassionate or practice nonviolence and practice, conscious parenting, those kinds of values. Mm-hmm. And then I also had no idea how to make rules and consequences without punishment, without, timeout and takeaway and these kinds of strategies. So deep dive into limits and consequences without punishment and what does it mean? So I kind of started to build my own parenting philosophy, and it worked when I was calm. Yeah. So I recognized that if I was in any way not if I hadn't slept well, if I was tired physically or emotionally drained, or in my own head spin, about me, I'm a disaster, whatever. I'm a bad mom, they're bad kids, whatever that, Yeah. Then I couldn't practice all those other good things. Mm-hmm. So over time, I developed my own parenting philosophy, and I call it the Calm Mama process. And it's 4 steps. So it's calm, that's us. Mm-hmm. Connect, that's using that compassion. Mm-hmm. Limit set is using limits to have our kids think without using commands. And then correct is consequences without creating pain. So I started teaching this and, helping people, and grew my coaching practice and my parenting work. And, eventually, yeah, I started Call Mama School so I could help more parents do this practice. And so there's an online course piece that takes you all the way through. And then I have weekly coaching where I'm right on there with the mamas and dads. I have a bunch of dads.
Oh, nice.
And which is so great. They're like, I'm a call mama.
Aw.
It's so cute, right? And they're men. And then we have like a private community, a private portal where we can communicate with each other. So it's really very supportive. And I love it. I love groups. I love support. I like creating community. I like helping people know each other. And yeah. And it's lifetime access. That was my other thing about, I didn't want to create some kind of thing. And then 6 months later, you're like, okay, bye, good luck. You're still a parent, but you know, I don't know. I didn't want that. I wanted it to be where you join and then I'm your coach for life and I walk you all the way through so that when you're talking about potty training, you're talking about first day of school, you're talking about homework, you're talking about, you know, driving, you're talking about dating, all the way through, you always have.
That's amazing.
This community. Yeah.
That's
So
amazing.
that's Call Mama School. Yeah.
Yeah, and I like it because like you said, you create a community, you create a group, and then you have parents who've gone through the course and who are there in the group, and then you have new parents who come along and they can also help the younger parents. They're like, oh, I did that too, or oh, I know exactly what you're going through, you know, like let me help you or let me relate to you, because half the time, like, I just want someone to relate to me, you know. I just want to know that I'm not the only person who's having this issue with my kid. I think that's fantastic to have that kind of community, and that's something like we don't really have anymore, like physically, because of the COVID and all of that. We can't get together so much, but having at least access to something like that, you know, on your phone or on your computer, on your tablet, like that's so cool. That's awesome. And I love
especially the fact that it's lifetime access. Like these are people that can be friends and now they can become like lifelong friends, and you know, you always have that connection. And so like I really love that about it. That's great. That's amazing.
Yeah, it is. And I think, you know, when my kids were little and I was in the mom groups, it changes how your mom relationships change over time. But, you know, you're really like those preschool moms or your like early kinder, elementary school moms, they're like your people, you know, you're like at the park every day or whatever. But everyone has so many different philosophies. So it's like those relationships are really, really important, of course. And they're like, oh, I just put them in the corner for like 5 minutes, or I just spank them, or I flick them, or they have all these different philosophies. And when you start to realize like, ooh, that's not really my value here. Like, and it's not to say that, I mean, I have some things that I think we shouldn't do to children. Like, I don't think we should shame them, and I don't think we should create pain. Yeah. But that's not to say, oh, these people are wrong and these people are right. But when we are on a certain type of mission with our family, we have certain value set, it can be difficult to have so many other voices.
Yeah.
And when you know you're in a parenting community and you're just like, yeah, no, these are the people I listen to for like actual strategy.
Yeah, like, I can totally relate to that, because this was a couple of years ago. I was just having, I don't want to say issues with one of my kids. They were just little. They were just acting their age. We had just moved. It was very normal. Like, I work with kids, so like I understand a lot of the psychology behind it. And I'm like, she's just acting normal. But I was just like kind of at my wit's end. I didn't know really how to help her and get her to like a comfortable place where she was like listening to me. And I remember just talking to an older lady who I love old people, but she was brought up a different sometimes. Yes. Yeah. She was brought up a different way, and she brought her kids up a certain way. And I wasn't even thinking, and I was just talking. I was like, yeah, you know, I'm just trying to help her out. She's really acting out. And I didn't get to the part where I was like, I understand it's because we've just moved and she's so little and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, yeah, she just yells at me. She yells at me like, no, or whatever. She yelled at me. And this older lady looked at me and she's like, well, have you ever tried just like slapping her across her mouth? And I just, like, I didn't know what to say. And it like clicked where I was like, oh, okay, this is how she was brought up. And this is probably how she brought her kids up. And I was like in shock, but I also understood. And I was like, no, I don't think I could do that. And I just kind of from there, I was like, you know what? Next time I'm having trouble with my kid, I don't think I'm going to come and ask you. I think we'll talk about some other things. But that's not one that I just can't see myself ever doing that, ever.
Yeah. I love that you, Brittany, were saying that it's like you could see that where she was coming from, because that's what compassion really is. Ultimately, it's like the ability to put someone else in a narrative and understand, oh, this is the philosophy they're under, this is their pattern, this is their feelings, this is their thoughts. Like, okay, I can understand. Doesn't mean I need to take their advice or judge it as wrong or right or whatever. It's like, oh, I don't need to take any of this for myself. And that's a big part of our value system in Calm Mom School and my approach. It's like how to teach people, our children, to be loving and compassionate, and how to understand where people are coming from. And really, they can't learn to do that unless we've been modeling that for them ourselves. And then that's like that compassionate piece. Like, how do we teach that with our kids? How do we show them that? Somewhere along the way, someone was that for you, probably was like helping you see, oh, this is what's happening for you, Brittany. You have big feelings, you have thoughts, this is how it's showing up in your life. And now you're able to do that for other people. I love that.
Yeah, compassion is one of the like most important things that I want like my daughter to know, you know, because it's really hard for me to just to get personal for a second. It's really hard for me to like be like angry and stay angry at someone ever, because I'm constantly like, I'm always thinking about, you know, what they're going through or what they could become or where they're coming from. And I just like, I love to look at things from everyone's different perspective, you know. And so I think that that's really important, to be able to meet people halfway and understand, you know, like the woman that was, you know, the other part of that is the woman that suggested, like, have you tried slapping her face? Like, she wasn't necessarily telling you should, you know. And I think, you know, for a lot of people, I think that they would hear that and they'd be like, oh my God, like, how dare you suggest I do something like that? But really, like, for her, she was just like, it was just a question for her, you know. And so like the fact that you were able to like see where she was coming from, instead of just being angry, like, oh, how dare you, you know, you were just like, oh, okay, well, this is how she did it, but I don't have, you know, like, she wasn't. So it's I don't know, that's something that I really want Lily, my toddler, to grow up knowing, is compassion and being able to meet people halfway and see things from people's point of views. I think that's like the most important thing that you can learn and you can do.
Yeah, it's so beautiful. And what happens, I think, when the way that people misunderstand how to teach it is they'll think to teach their kids to say, how do you think they feel? Right? You probably even maybe have said that. And it's a misunderstanding of how emotional literacy is developed. So when you have a person who's emotionally literate, then they can be compassionate. And I'll explain what that means. So emotional literacy is the ability to know what I'm feeling, to know how to talk about it, and then know what to do with it. Compassion is the ability to do that for someone else.
Okay.
So we have all of us wanting to create emotional literacy in our kids, but what we do is we often start with the external. How do they think? How do they feel? How do they act?
Oh, okay.
And we focus on the other person without first teaching the child.
Right. Okay. Because how are they supposed to know what they're thinking unless like they've also learned that for themselves?
It's like when you have little kids, and especially, you know, Brittany, a kindergarten teacher, it's like you're saying, this is an A, this is a B, this is a C, right? First, you're just showing them what's out there, and then you're going ah and ba and ka or whatever you do. I don't know. I taught 8th grade. Didn't teach reading.
You did good.
Right? I mean, I did have kindergartners. So we do that with math as well, like numeracy. We teach them, this is a number and this is the value of that number and this is what it represents. But we don't do that with emotion.
Yeah.
And so being able to, kids know what 2 is, because they know you got 2 things and you're only giving them 1. They don't have the concept of 1 or 2 of the number or the name, but they know real quick, you got 2 lollipops and you going to give one to sister and one to sister. Oh, give me two, right? But with feelings, the same. They have all the feelings. It's just a big mess inside. They don't know what it's all called. It's like that you have to label it. So I teach that concept of looking at behavior as a clue to the emotion. And when I talk about the connection, it's like, how do we connect to our kids? You have this behavior, that's probably because there's a feeling inside. And let's put those feelings together with the behavior and now name it. Now, looking at the behavior, it's a strategy to cope with that feeling, communicate that feeling, or chase a new feeling. But if the behavior doesn't work, let's find a new way to cope or communicate or chase your feelings.
So my daughter actually recently had her preschool parent teacher conference. And so they talked to me about like what she's learning and what she's understanding, what she's, still working on. But the most important thing that she said to me was that Lily shows a lot of empathy for like her age. And I was like, I started tearing up on the phone, and I was like, I'm sorry. Cause that was to me the most important thing, okay, she can't count to 5 consecutively yet. Okay, whatever. But can she look at someone and understand, hey, they're crying, they're sad, let me try to comfort them and things like that. That was up far and away. I was like, oh my God.
Beautiful.
I was so proud.
And the thing I want to offer to you is that it's also thinking about how over time she can do that for herself. Being able to sit in how am I feeling right now? Very sad. How is that showing up for me? I'm crying, I'm hiding, I'm going away from my friends, I'm isolating, I'm, wanting to eat 7 cookies, whatever it is. Then she's like, okay, this is sadness. Let me see how I can move through this sadness. What are really healthy ways? Because we don't want to get rid of the emotion. We just want to find strategies that actually alleviate the pain of it and move it through. And when you start to see your child able to do that for others, it's such an amazing thing. When my children do it for me, I'm like, my work here is done. So that is the epitome of what we're working on here, is for them to narrate and name my emotion for me. And that's very high level skill and empathy. And it's so beautiful. This just happened on a vacation recently. I was upset, and my son was like, I know you're really disappointed, but if you could stop snapping at all of us, that would really help.
Oh.
That is so sweet.
I know.
I love that. And it does, not only does it help kids yes, have relationships with other people, they go to work or they have a love interest or whatever, but it's also just for themselves, for their own mental health. Because I feel a lot of times, here we are as adults and we have all these mental health issues and we're on all this medication, and if you need it, that's fine. But maybe we didn't all have to be on medication if we had known how to catch it when it was really early on, instead of piling all this
and how to
crap on top of it.
Yeah.
Yes, and how to process fear. I have questions that I ponder all the time, and one of my favorite ones is, what does one do with sadness? And I then will replace sadness with other emotions, but the sadness one is the most powerful to me, because I think we just really don't know what to do. And even in Come Mama School, people will come with their pain and their emotions, and they want to either about their kids or their marriage or whatever, it's work, siblings. I mean, stuff comes up, we're in a group together, and they will say, what do I do with it? I don't know, I'm so upset. And it's just a lot of times we just have to wait. We have to let it move through our body. It's a physiological reaction, move it through, and then there's a bunch of other strategies I teach, but
it's such an uncomfortable thing. I think that your gut reaction is just to avoid it. For me, so I'm getting pretty real. Sorry, I've had a week.
Yeah, good. This is the place to do it.
emotions, yay. But like, so yeah, like sadness is uncomfortable. Like I've always been like, the easiest emotion for me was always like anger. And so a lot of times, like when I'm feeling sad, anger comes out and I like lash out because I don't know how to be sad, because being sad is, it's uncomfortable. You feel sad, you feel down, you feel like nobody cares about, you start to be depressed and you're like, I don't want to be like this. And so you're like, it's easier to like yell at someone else or to like be mad at something else, when really it's just sad, and we need to sit with it. And so yeah, I definitely think that teaching our kids at like an early age how to have feelings and sit with feelings, and that it's okay to be sad, that's like the most important thing that you could teach.
I think of anger like a bucket of water. So you have all the, like, sometimes we think of emotion just as water, and then like you have murky water, you have tidal waves. I mean, there's just so many different types of water. You have swamps, you've got creeks, you got rivers, you got oceans, like, and this is all the feelings are different, but it's all the same. They're all emotion. And so what I think of when I think about anger, it's like, all these confusing emotions that I don't know what to do with, I'm going to put them in this bucket, and then I'm going to throw that bucket at you.
Yeah.
And it's going to look like an anger bucket. It's going to look like a bunch of anger, but really it's all these other feelings that I have no idea what to do with.
Yeah.
And sometimes they say anger is like a secondary emotion or a symptom. And yeah, I think what you're talking about, that is really a lot of times when we talk about calm in mothering and yelling. I work with a lot of parents who really are yellers. But then when they get in there, they're like, I don't yell that much. But it's like the reason that they want to come is because they don't know what to do with all the underlying feelings. It's showing up in their behavior in their parenting, like emotionally checking out or being too aggressive or rescuing. It's all these different behaviors, but really it's their own unprocessed emotion. And some of that is around motherhood, like, I'm not a very good mom, I'm not doing a good job. We have a lot of self-deprecating thoughts. And then other times it's hard, so we're disappointed about motherhood. We're angry about it. We're disappointed, we're frustrated. Like, it's not.
Yeah. And that's what's so amazing about how, your child came up to you, when you were on vacation and said, I know you're disappointed right now, but if you could not snap it, like the fact that he like was able to see the underlying thing and understand that the snapping was because of that. Like, that's awesome.
It's so great. Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing, that as you teach these emotional literacy skills, I think of it as becoming an emotional coach for our kids. As we teach these skills, then they're able to say, this is too much for me right now. I don't want to be in this conversation because I'm upset, I'm angry, I'm overwhelmed, I'm hurt. And they know how to take care of themselves. And I need to make they're taking care of themselves not mean anything about me. Like, oh, they're going to go, I don't know. Like, I have to just trust that they're going to go take care of themselves, and then they're going to be able to come back, and they're not going to be like, my mom's a terrible person. Maybe they are going to think that. It's okay. Like, whatever they need to do to process their emotion, as long as it doesn't cause, well, even if it causes pain and hurt, that's what I teach you with correction. It's like, you can have your big feelings, and sometimes your big feelings are going to look like this. And all that makes sense. And you still created this problem. So now it is your responsibility to deal with the result of your actions.
I'm going to take us into a quick commercial break, and then we're going to come right back, you guys. So don't go anywhere. And we're going to talk a little bit more about parenting strategies, what works, what doesn't work. So yeah, stick around. All right. Well, welcome back from the break. And I've been enjoying this podcast so far. I hope you guys are too. So right now, we're going to start talking about parenting strategies, what works, what doesn't work, a couple of tips and tricks and things that we can use in our everyday lives. So let's go.
Let's go. Well, you know, especially with younger kids, the strategy that everyone talks about is timeout, right? And there is another phrase that people use, which is time in. I don't know if you guys have ever heard that. So
I've read it somewhere, but yeah, I don't really know what it means.
Right. So let me think about kind of what we were talking about before the break, just about how we all have these big feelings, right? We all do. We all don't know what to do with them. So moms have their big feelings. They got to figure out what to do. Kids have their big feelings. Now, big feelings show up in big actions, right? They show up in our behavior. And when we're focused on the external behavior only, then you can have strategies, right? You have parenting strategies where you maybe extinguish a behavior you don't like. But what happens is if you don't deal with the emotion that's driving the behavior, if you're not teaching the child how to manage that feeling or process it, then you're going to have that feeling pop up in a new behavior. And I think of it as the whack-a-mole parenting, like just going through, like, here's, that old arcade game or whatever. It's like a little, mole pops up and you try to hammer it down. And then another one pops up and you try to go really fast. Now, if you have a child who's pretty good at managing their big feelings and is naturally compliant, then you can probably get away with behavior modification in some ways, like naughty kid, bad, go in your corner, come back in 3 minutes because you're 3 and we'll move forward. But a lot, I would say most children don't know what to do with their big feelings. And they also they're curious, they want to understand the world a little bit. And so they're just, and they also don't know how to delay gratification. They want what they want. They're just little. So you're going to have a lot of behavior. And if you're time outing everything without dealing with the emotions, you're going to end up all day long going around trying to punish your children. It's not effective. So a concept of timeout essentially is your behavior isn't working, go away and come back when you're ready. It's sort of the concept of it. But if you think about this feelings first model that I'm teaching, then your feelings are driving your behavior. So really you're saying to your child, go over there and manage your emotion and come back when you're ready. The thing is, though, they don't know how. They really don't know what to do with their big feelings. And so when I teach connection and limit set together, connect is really narrating. You hit your brother. I wonder if you're feeling really overwhelmed. Or, you went and snuck 3 cookies. I wonder if you're feeling really hungry. I'm just kidding. It wouldn't be. So I wonder if you're, feeling really sad that I said only 1 cookie. You keep coming out of your bed and it's already been bedtime. I wonder if you're feeling a little bit scared in bed. Naming that emotion is so helpful because then the child can say yes or no, right? And if you notice, I said all of those as I wonder if. Yeah, the tool is really powerful when you ask it as a question and it's an actual invitation to a conversation.
That reminds me actually of the divorce episode that we did a few episodes ago. They were talking, so she's talking about how to talk to your kids about divorce and things like that. And then she said, ask instead of tell, ask them how they're feeling instead of being like, oh, I bet you're feeling blah, 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 So that just reminded me of that. I just wanted to quickly add that in there.
Yeah, it's really good. And I like to offer an emotion as a guess, because it can be really confusing if remember we talked about how if you don't know the names of all the numbers or all the letters, then you're like, which letter is this? They're like, I don't know anything about letters. They're like, I just know language or whatever. So offering also helps the brain say, is it or not? Like, is this sad? No, this is mad. Or is this frustration? No, this is, I'm just sad. Like, they can start, oh my God, the power of going internal and defining it for yourself is so incredible. Like, learning that tool of, what am I feeling? What is this called? She says it's this. Is it this? I don't know. Okay, actually, yes, it is. And then saying yes or saying no.
Yeah.
And we don't need to get it right. Like, there's nothing that we're just trying to help them. And then we set a limit. So you connect with them, and then you would say, you're welcome to play here as long as you don't hit. So they know that they're feeling this way. You've allowed some space to talk about it. And then you say, you're welcome to play here as long as there's no hitting. Because everyone stays safe here. This is, we love this. Everyone stays safe here. It's not safe to hit. It's okay to have big feelings. It's not okay to hit. And then that can look like, imagine your kids are playing by themselves, and then you come into the space, and then you say, you're welcome to continue playing with sister as long as there are no problems here. And then, okay, mommy, yeah, it's no problems. And then there's another problem of this kid's got some big feelings, not done. So you can either you can be in the kitchen with me, or you can go to your room, or you can sit on the couch, or you can go to a quiet corner. You can have options that sort of like look like timeout, but that's not what we're doing. We're not like, you're bad, go in the corner, come back when you're ready.
Yeah.
So it's very different. It might look like the same strategy, but it's coming from such a different intention and moving away from behavior only model to feelings first model.
Yeah, that actually reminds me. So when I was growing up, my mom, a lot of times she would tell me, she would like give me, like, if I was coming in hot or something. And I think this is just, I'm loving, like, right now, I feel like a bunch of people are now starting to realize that, like, oh yeah, we need to teach emotions and all this stuff. And I'm loving it. But like, when I was growing up, my mom would often tell me, like, go run around a few times and then come back, or like go into your room and like play for 10 minutes and come back, just to kind of, I think she's trying to like distract me from my feelings, but like without actually explaining what was happening, just kind of, and so I don't know, I just as you were talking about the timeout, that kind of reminded me of, oh yeah, that's, my mom would do that when I was growing up.
And do you remember, not to be too personal, but do you remember, like, did it work? Did it help you with your feelings? Or were you just like, grumpy in your room for a bit? Like, what would happen?
I don't remember. I usually, if it was something like running around or something, like I'm a kid, so like I would just get energy out, and then I'd like feel different because endorphins or whatever, chemical magic.
It's so true. Emotions do move through us.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm sure that there were times where like my feeling was still there. I just I don't know. I was also very like sensitive too, and so like I feel like I would see my mom wasn't like happy with the emotion that I was presenting or something, and so then I would just come back and be like, oh, I'm gonna be happy, like, so yeah, so that's also interesting. Yeah, not to like get kind of more personal, but
Oh, it's so great, because I think this is why when we play out a behavior only model, what happens is you end up not feeling okay with your own emotion, right? You don't know what to do with it. You don't learn any skills. And then also you start to modulate or measure your own behavior based on the emotions of others.
Yeah.
And it can feel really inauthentic to you. And especially women, we lose our voice, we lose our agency, and then we blow up. And that isn't really it's just pressure, because we haven't been able to communicate. I'm feeling quite overwhelmed, or I'm feeling really frustrated, or I'm feeling jealous of your free time, like with our partners, feeling jealous of your free mind time. Like, you have so much free mind time. Like, I don't have any free mind time. Can I have free mind time?
What is it with husbands? Like, what is it with men? They can just like sit there and think of nothing. for like an
I
extended
hate
period
it.
of time. And I'm like, what? Like I asked, I'll do the wife thing and be like, what are you thinking about? And then he'll just tell me nothing. And I'm like, what do you mean you're thinking about nothing?
Or
What
my
do you
husband
mean?
is like, I'm thinking about whether my favorite basketball team is going to win the game today. I'm just like, I am
As
thinking
if?
about like July, whether we should plan a trip, like a road trip or a flying trip, and how much it's going to cost, like, and whether the kids should be in summer camp, and what that's going to look like, and what day school starts,
A
and
laundry list of things. Yeah.
yeah, like should we travel there? It's so hot. Yeah, it's like, but for other people, yes. Oh, that just happened. So people pleasing, I think, oftentimes comes from a place where we have been denied our emotional experience. Like your emotional experience, your thoughts and feelings don't matter as much as mine.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone's mattered the same.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not like, oh, yeah, women dominate. I don't know. Sure, we could do that. But also, it's not like my feelings only matter or my thoughts only matter or my needs. No, how do we be in a community with each other? How do we all learn to be comfortable with each other's needs and thoughts and feelings? And that's what it means to be in a family.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so I love running around. Go run around. I love it. It's a great strategy. Go to your room, but when we narrate first.
Yeah.
Go to your room, blow off some steam. You look really upset. Are you okay? Do you want to be alone? Do you want to be with someone? Just saying those extra sentences.
Yeah.
Is so powerful.
I love that you're trying to get to the root of like what is, because so Lisa and I could both be sad, but we both display it in very different ways. And the same person could look at us and go, oh, well, she's obviously like disgusted and she's obviously blah, blah, blah. But it's not. We're both feeling sadness. And I can't remember the exact situation, but there was a situation with one of my kids. We were sitting on the couch and I thought, oh, well, she's mad. And I remember just asking her, I was like, hey, so this is happening. Is it because you're feeling mad at me right now? And I asked her and she was like, thought for a second. And she's like, no, actually, it's because I can't remember what it was. It was like scared or insecure. She probably didn't use the word insecure, but it was something to that measure. And I was like, oh, okay. I completely reframed my strategy. So I'm like, well, if you're mad at me, this is what I need to say to you right now. But I was like, oh, okay, you're feeling really insecure. Okay. Let me let me reassure you right now. And I was just really glad that I asked, because I thought one emotion, I was like, okay, well, here's the strategy for that one. And but it was a completely different thing. And if I hadn't just taken that extra second to ask her, I wouldn't have accomplished anything, honestly.
Yes, right. You would have come at her maybe you might have been defensive or explaining. I mean, with the monologue, I call it, like when the mom is just blah, 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 blah. It's like so ineffective when we talk. Anytime you're saying more than 2 sentences, you're not, you stop. Nobody's listening to you any longer because you're not in a conversation. You're in a monologue.
Yeah.
And it's like you watch a television show like This Is Us. I'm like, no one talks like that, like this many sentences where everybody's listening. I'm like, no, that's not.
I love that word monologue. I'm going to use that all the time now. It's amazing because you just changed one letter of that word and it's brilliant. Anyway, sorry. But what I wanted to say to you, Brittany, is also like in that moment, just add like a simple thing. Imagine how seen she felt when you asked her that. Like that's just like, I was like, oh.
And I can remember it too. Like I don't even remember exactly the situation, but I remember the look on her face and I was like, okay, what is it called in the movie Inside Out? Core memory activated or something. I was like, okay, mom, core memory activated.
Yes, I love that. Yes. Yeah. It's so great because the thing is that when you see it land, or like you could almost see the body change, like an exhale or a deepening of like relaxation of the shoulders, or kind of a movement towards that your child
clenching the jaw.
There's
a lot of jaw clenching all the time. Like anyway.
Yeah. We always have to set limits, and we can talk more about what that looks like. But when you practice that connection first, And then the person is like, oh, and then can release some of that. They don't have to keep showing it in their behavior.
Mm-hmm.
And, we don't have to go in and like have a consequence and have, a bunch of limits. They're still available. I teach them all the time because they're super important. And when you are connecting well, a lot of times you don't need them.
And now I'm thinking like, well, what if that's just their behavioral way of asking for help, instead of like they're asking for that support, but they don't know how to ask for support. They might not even consciously know that they're asking, but that might be what that is. And so like if you can connect with them and you can get them to talk about it, then they naturally just feel better because they're like, oh, that need was met. I needed them to see that I was feeling this way. There was I guess a discipline moment that I just wanted to bring up just to ask you, Darlynn, about it. But it was one night I played some like little games with Lily on my laptop, and then we were getting ready for dinner, and so I had to like put the laptop away, and she was like really upset and she was like throwing a tantrum. And I usually I get really triggered by tantrums, and it's really hard for me, but like in that moment I sort of like I sat on the floor and I was like, do you want a hug? And then like she kind of like hugged me, and I was like, I understand that you want to keep playing this game, and like mommy has to say no sometimes, and I just kind of like was like holding her and giving her a hug. And so like, because usually I'll just get upset and irritated, and then I won't want to deal with the tantrum, and then I'll walk away, or I'll say, okay, you need to whatever. But just in that moment, I don't know, I just really felt like she needed to just, like I was like, no, mommy's got you. Like it's okay. It's just, sometimes it's no, and that's really hard. And I don't know.
That's
But
so beautiful. Yes, I love. Oh, I'm so proud of you.
thank you.
You're so good.
I looked at my husband and I was like, did you see that?
You're like, this is a miracle happening right here. Yeah. So I love it. It's like I think of it as being comfortable with someone's discomfort.
Mhm.
And like, as a mom, it can be really difficult when our kids are having a tantrum or when they're upset or disappointed or have big feelings, because we're like biologically designed to meet their needs. So it's confusing to us because we're the person who caused the problem, but now they're going to help them with the problem. And aren't we supposed to help with problems? It's just like our brain short circuits a little bit in a temper tantrum. And then logic kicks in for us and we're like, this is dumb. You can play it tomorrow. You already played for an hour. We'll play it after dinner. Like,
Yeah.
that's where the monologuing comes. It's like this lecture threat thing. But if you can look at behavior as a communication of emotion, and that's what you did. You were like, this temper tantrum is just feelings. And these feelings are not a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And you were able to be comfortable. Like, tell me where I'm wrong. Tell me if that's resonating.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
One more very quick commercial break, and we'll go into our last segment. This is just so good. I'm gonna like download and save this podcast on my phone just so I can listen to it once a week for my little mom pep talk. You're like, okay, stay calm, it's cool. Also, so I can remember how awesome I was a couple of times. So I got my little gold star.
The core memories.
Yeah.
But yeah, so stick around. We'll be right back. We'll be back after these commercial breaks. Just like stay calm and be level-headed when we're trying to parent our kids. So
Yeah, so good. And really, I think the framework that will help all of your listeners and all the mamas and dads, like listening, thinking about when your kid has this behavior, if you are able to have that mindset of this is emotion talking. Sometimes I think like this is pain talking.
Mhm.
It really helps if it's a real big feeling, especially as they get older. It can release some of the activation that comes up inside of us. Our reactivity is coming from this is a problem and I need to solve it. Like I call it fix it, change it, stop it, solve it. It's like when you're in that space, your stress response is activated and your brain is going to tell you, we have got to fix this behavior. It is a big problem, big emergency, and we better stop. And that's what happens. And the more you can train your mind to look at the behavior as communication or a person coping or a person trying to change their feelings, right? Chasing that next feeling, then it hopefully will help somewhat of your brain getting to that space for connection. So that framework is helpful. Do you guys have any thoughts about that?
I think that's great, because I think sometimes when our kids are screaming at us and they're throwing a tantrum on the floor, like we just kind of like go, and it's just very like all you can see is just the tantrum. But if you like arm yourself, so to speak, like you already have this knowledge of, okay, obviously something big is going on. They're having some kind of feeling. Like if you already know that, like, of course, your second reaction is going to be kind of like a little cactus. But then like you can take a second and be like, okay, hang on. What do they need right now?
I actually say, hang on, what's the feeling driving this? Like the brain trying to answer that question. Because what do they need? I don't know, 17,000 things, always, because they're children.
Yeah.
But just to help you see, like, if you ask yourself, what are they feeling? You can get there faster. Is that helpful?
Yeah, because like maybe they're scared, or maybe it's a physical thing. Like maybe they're just incredibly tired, and so their capacity to be patient is just like, it's just not there right now because they're just really tired. I think that's great if you're able to kind of like look deeper, dig a little bit, find the root, and we're like, okay, now I know what to do. Now I have a plan. And like Lisa did, just take a minute and like sit down, just, I mean, I'm sure for you too, Lisa, like that hug probably felt good for you and for her. Like just that, it's like, what do they call those things? Those like weighted blankets. Like there's like a psychological thing. It feels good
it calms the nervous system. It like actually calms your nervous system.
Yeah. And then like you could take a second and think, and then she was able to take a moment and think. It's like hitting the pause button.
Yes.
I think that's
only
awesome.
happened one time, by the way. Like that was like a first time. I was like, what was
good
that?
First time, not one time. Yeah, first of many.
I was like, I hope it'll every time now. But yeah, I also like, I was just thinking, so a lot of times I think the reason that we like in tantrums, we think of it as like just an all of a sudden just random thing that happens, and then we're like, oh, what is this? But then like it actually is probably the feeling was there for a while, right? And then it culminated into this tantrum. And so now that I'm thinking about it, that might make it easier too to like think about it as this isn't just a random event. This is something that they were working on it. This is just, it boiled up into this
little teapot. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Or like for your daughter, absolute delight, height of moment, mom, full attention. Where's the 9-month-old? Not in the picture. You didn't mention this other child. Like, so there's something else going on here. Pure bliss ends. Like, that is a very difficult experience for our little ones. Like, they're just like, the best thing that was just happening is now over. That's how it is every night at bedtime for them, by the way. Like,
yeah. My kids were having a hard time going to bed once, and I remember just looking at them and being, and they couldn't understand. They were way too young, but I remember looking at them and saying, okay, I promise nothing exciting happens after you go to bed. Mommy just sits down and does nothing. I promise I'm not having any fun, because in their minds, it's like, oh, the day's over. I can't play. I can't watch TV. I'm like, no. Nothing happens after you go to bed. It really is over.
I like to teach my moms to teach their kids that all the mom does afterwards is just clean up all night. So that if bedtime goes too late and they need to do restitution, we haven't talked about this concept that I teach in correction, but it's like, yes, you have big feelings, no problem. You had a big behavior. It caused a problem for me because then I was doing bedtime extra 20 minutes. That means I didn't get a chance to mop the floor. And then they mop the floor for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I see. I like how it's like, okay, we address the problem. We address the feeling. I don't want to say the problem, because we have feelings are feelings. You're going to have them. We address the feeling, we label it, but that doesn't mean we just stop there, because I've seen so many parents, they're like, oh, are you feeling sad? And like, they just stop. I'm like, okay, great. We've labeled it. Awesome. But now what do we do with that? Like, okay, you're sad, but we can't use our hands and hit people. Okay, you're sad, but we can't start throwing things. Maybe we could do this. Maybe we could do that, blah, blah, blah. You know, it's like we address it and then, okay, let's work on this together. Let me give you some tools.
Right, because just naming it, just saying the word doesn't solve the problem.
No.
Just saying, oh, you're sad right now, like all of a sudden they're not going to be like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm happy, you're right. I was sad for a split second and now I'm back to la, like, you know. Yeah.
And I was thinking while you were talking about your tantrum story, and Brittany, when you're talking about the hug, because not every kid will let you do that. Their nervous system is so activated, they don't want to be restrained, they don't want to be connected to, they don't want their body touched. And that doesn't mean that it's wrong. It's like their body has to go through some other thing to get through that emotion. Maybe it is just staying on the ground. You do your loving connection. You offer the label, like, hey, makes sense. We were having this great time. Then I said, stop. Now you're feeling disappointed. Yes. And I'm going to go make dinner now. And you're welcome to stay on the floor and just keep crying. Like, if it's not causing a problem, it's okay. Or if it does cause a problem, you're not going to be able to stop. The train has left the station. So then coming back and, coming back to our kids and saying, so that took a long time. I didn't get dinner started because of what happened. And then having them make that up to you or whatever. Yeah. I wanted to help some of your listeners. So they'll be like, just a hug. My kid won't let me hug me. Cause that's how my kids would be like, push me away. And So, and then the last strategy, but you were going to say, Brittany, is about the pause. You called it pause button, which is so cute. Cause I call it the pause break. And really we were talking about how if we could think about what they're feeling, we could ask ourselves questions. We could, think about what's going on with them. When we're activated, that cannot happen.
Yeah.
Because remember I said empathy, you can't go into someone else's story and help them unless you're able to do that for yourself. And so connection, limit, set, correct, they don't happen unless we're calm. And so I say we pause, which is like literally don't talk, don't say anything. And then we reset. And I say it's reset your body, reset your mind. So sometimes that looks like jumping up and down 5 times, or clapping your hands together, or going to drink some water, or flushing the toilet. Like I have a bunch of silly strategies. And we do all these strategies so that so that we calm ourselves, and then we can put our mind back on track. The minute you're able to go, what's going on with this person? You're calm.
Oh yeah.
This has been so good.
Yes.
I don't know if you can hear it. My little one snuck down here and she's starting to play. So she's so cute. She's in a tutu, of course. But so anyway, we have to start wrapping up. But before we go, I want Darlynn, if you could share with our listeners everything, like where they could find you, where they can find your course, where they can get more resources, because I know people are going to want to look for you after this.
Yeah, great. So the easy place to find me is on Instagram, and I'm just at Darlynn Childress. It'll be in the show notes, but my name is spelled Darlynn Childress, so it looks like Childress. And then Calm Mama Coaching is my website, and you can find all about Calm Mama School. I have a podcast called Become a Calm Mama. And there's also a freebie on there, like a free masterclass called Stop Yelling at Your Kids. And it is absolutely incredibly valuable, and it's free, and it's 3 small mini lessons about how to actually calm your mind and calm yourself, and what to do when you're in that frazzled state. So I recommend everybody get that. It's one of my most popular things that I have. Yeah.
This has been amazing. This has been so much fun and just so enlightening. And
this is really helpful. Yeah.
Okay, great. I love that. Good. Well, thank you, everybody. So nice to be here.
Thank you.